Welcome to Jenny's Kitchen, and I'm Jenny. As many of you know, I love to entertain, and my two favorite seasons for entertaining that I especially like are summer and autumn. I like autumn a little more, and the reason why is because when my kitchen is full of people and there's laughter throughout the house, the aromas of the autumn candles, the spices that I'm using in my cooking, it's wonderful, just wonderful. What I don't like is being stuck in the kitchen doing a lot of cooking and not being able to have fun with my guests. So on today's show, I'm going to show you a great menu that you can prepare ahead of time that will make a spectacular presentation and will really entice the taste buds. So let's start. We're going to start with a pork tenderloin, which we're going to stuff. Now this pork tenderloin has been washed and patted dry. So you just basically want to cut it down the center, and then you'll have this flat piece exposed. You want to take your knife about 1/4 of an inch from one end and cut across all the way to about 1/4 of an inch of the other end. Then you're going to rotate your piece of pork tenderloin, and you're going to do the same thing. Now what I like to do, and you've got to be very careful, is I like to stick my finger in as far as it'll go, and that kind of gives me a judgment as to how far I need to cut. But be careful when you cut through that you don't poke yourself. So I'm going to stick it down. I'm going to insert the knife again. I'm going to put my finger in this end, and when my finger just touches the point, as it does now, I know that I'm dead center on. I turn my knife around, and I have an opening now, and I'm able to stuff the pork tenderloin. And we're going to do the same thing to this piece right here. We're going to start about 1/4 of an inch in, cut all the way across, rotate your piece, put your finger in, start at this end, do the same thing, and just cut across. And let me see, I can touch my other finger, I know I'm dead center. So now with that, we're going to stuff it, and I love to stuff it with dried fruit. And the reason why it makes a beautiful presentation, as you cut into each slice, you're going to have beautiful color. So we're going to start with the dried apricot, and we're going to push it down as far as we can, put in a few dried cranberries, and some prunes. A dried prune. And then we're going to start again with the apricot, and that's where we're going to stop. And now we're going to rotate this. Remember, we started with the apricot, so we want to put some dried cranberries on this side, and we want to put a prune in. And that's all there is to it. And as you can see, it fluffs up the meat, because this piece that has been stuffed now is much thicker than this piece. So let's do the same thing here. We're going to put in a dried apricot, push it down as far as you can, and some dried cranberries, and a prune. Now if you like to use figs, pears, apples, you can basically stuff it with whatever you like, but I love this color combination. As you can see from this plate here, this is what the inside of the pork roast is going to look like. Now you can also use a pork loin in addition to a pork tenderloin. I like the pork tenderloin because it takes less time to cook and the meat is more tender. And remember, with the pork of today, it does not have to be cooked all the way. I like to cook my pork medium rare. If not, it has a tendency to really dry out. And there's nothing worse than a piece of dried pork. And that's all there is to it. Just stuff this in. I didn't need that one after all, and there you have it. Now, we're going to take my rubs, my Jenny's Kitchen rubs for pork, and we're going to place it into a bowl, and we're going to add some olive oil to that, and then we're going to mix it up, and then we're going to brush it on our meat. Now this is dry, as you can see, so we're going to add a little more olive oil. You can never get enough olive oil as far as I'm concerned. I love olive oil. I was raised on it. As many of you know, I'm of Lebanese descent, so we had olive oil on practically everything that we ate. All right, here we go. This looks like it's a much better consistency, as you can see. This is beautiful. I'm just going to add another dab more, and then we're going to spread it on our tenderloin. Now, if you would like to use a brush, you certainly can, but what I found is that you can cover a lot more by using the back of a spoon. So I'm going to start with the bottom, but before I do, I want to get my roasting pan ready. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time cleaning up in the kitchen, so I use a piece of parchment paper. I line my roaster with it, and I put my rack in. And the reason that I use a rack is because I want it to brown all the way around. If you don't use a rack, what happens is that your meat sits on the bottom and that part doesn't get browned. So we're going to turn it over, because you always want to cook pork fat side up. And we're just going to spread this on the bottom and on the sides, and we're going to lay it on the rack. And then we're going to put some on the top, and we're going to spread that around. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do the same thing here. Now this piece, it's kind of hard to tell which would be the fat side, but as you can see, this piece is much leaner than this. So we're going to start with the lean side. We're going to spread this on. Make sure you get the sides. You want everything to be flavorful, not just the top and not just the bottom. And then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to put the rub on top like this. Get as much of that as you can out. This little piece of prune is sticking out, no big deal. Fold it over like that. It'll moisten the edges, it'll make it stay. And then you're going to place it into a preheated oven, like I'm going to do now, at 375 degrees, and roast it for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Check it after 15 minutes, and then you'll be able to tell if it's to your desired doneness. Okay, now the next dish we're going to prepare is a wonderful yam casserole. Now I just want you to know that you'll be able to receive these recipes at the end of the program, so you can sit back and relax and just watch me cook rather than having to take notes all the time. So as I said, we're going to have a wonderful yam casserole that you can slide right in the oven with your pork roast and let them cook while you're having fun with your guests. So here is our yams that have been peeled, chunked, and boiled, and then drained. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mash them up. And I don't like the newfangled electric stuff. I like to use the old-fashioned mashers. And look at how beautiful. Look at that color. This is gorgeous. And we're going to put in a little bit of salt and a few turns of pepper, a little bit of cinnamon. I love cinnamon. It's my favorite fall spice. And a little bit of nutmeg. It smells so good. I love it. Okay, we're just going to mix this up. And then to this, we're going to add some butter. Oh, probably 2 to 3 tablespoons. We're going to put that in. We're going to incorporate that by just mashing it. The heat from the potatoes will melt it. See, it's almost gone. I only see a flake left. That's it. And a little coconut milk, a little secret ingredient. And probably, half a cup or so. We're going to mix that in. Look at that. I love sweet potatoes. I made some sweet potato cupcakes the other night that were out of this world. Maybe I'll show you how to do that on my next show. And some brown sugar, maybe a 1/4 cup or so. Depends on how sweet you like things. I don't like a lot of sweetness because I want to get the flavor of whatever it is that I'm eating. Okay, now, here's your finished product. Look at that. That's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make a little crumb topping. This is brown sugar and flour and butter. And what we're going to do is we're just going to mix these all together until we get like a crumble top like you'd have for an apple Betty or something like that. And it's going to make little, like beads, I guess is the best way to describe it. And you're just going to sprinkle that on top of your yams right before you put it into the oven, and it makes a nice little crust. And sometimes you got to get in here with your fingers. I always do once I get the initial ingredients combined. Your fingers are your best tool you'll ever have in the kitchen. Okay, so as you can see, this has made a nice little crummy crust, and we're going to place this into, we're going to put into this casserole dish here. So let me grab a spoon like this. We're going to spill these potatoes out into the casserole dish. Gosh, it smells so good. I love, love autumn spices. This is beautiful. Now, if you want to use an oblong dish, you can. Choice is yours. I just want to be able to take this to the table and serve it right out of here, so that's why I'm using something kind of fancy. But you could put it into a different dish and just take it to the table, take it out and put it into something else. And then we're going to just kind of crumble our crust here over the top. And then when we finish with this, we're going to sprinkle on some walnuts. And if you want to use pecans, you can use pecans too. Choice is yours. I kind of like walnuts, so that's why I'm using walnuts. But anyway, that's it. We're going to sprinkle on a little bit of walnut. Yum, yum, yum. And there you have it. The yam casserole that goes right next to your pork roast. Very easy so far, right? So that's it. Now we're going to pop it into the oven next to our pork roast. Make sure you don't cover it. The aroma of that roast, it's marvelous. All right, the next thing I want to do is show you how to make mashed potatoes. I know some of you are going to go, oh, I know how to make mashed potatoes. Well, we all do, but there's a little trick maybe you don't know that I want to entertain you with. Okay, so let me tell you how I used to make mashed potatoes. Peel my potatoes, boil them, drain them, add cold milk, add cold butter, salt and pepper, and take it from there. Then I had a very wise woman tell me when I lived in Monterey, why am I adding cold ingredients to a hot dish? And I went, voila. So what we want to do is we want to heat our milk and heat our butter and then add the hot ingredients to the hot potatoes. So let's start with some butter. Again, I don't know, 2 to 3 tablespoons. And some milk, half and half, whatever your pleasure is to that. And a little salt and some cracked pepper. Okay, we're going to put this on the stove. We're going to melt it down, and that's it. Now we're going to take our potatoes off of the stove. Now these potatoes have not been peeled, but they have been cooked and drained. And I like to use the red potatoes because I think personally they make the best mashed potatoes. So let's take off the lid and see. There we go. You can see them here, skins and all. Beautiful. And you'll see the little bit of red peeking out from the white after they've been mashed. And again, I use a good old hand masher. Ah, yes. Builds up those triceps and those biceps. Now, if I could only use it with my left hand, that way I wouldn't be off balanced. But anyway, here we have it. Doesn't take long at all. It is a little tough in the beginning, but once you add the heated liquid. This is melting just beautifully. I think I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit because I don't want my potatoes to get cold and have the reverse situation happen, cold potatoes, because then they get really gummy. No one wants to eat gummy potatoes. And then I'm going to take a few snips of chives. I love chives and potatoes, and just add them to this. Now, if you want to make garlic mashed potatoes, those are delicious. Just take a couple cloves of garlic and mince them and add them to your cooking liquid, and it'll flavor the milk, which then will permeate right into the potatoes. And, you know, again, it's your taste buds, not mine. Create your own essence, as I've always told you how to do. Create your own essence. And here we go. Let's see how this is doing. This is almost melted. Very, very good. Okay, and then I like to just add just a little bit of salt, because for some reason potatoes need a lot of salt. I never salt my water when I'm cooking them. I always wait until after they're done, and I like lots of cracked pepper too. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, I think we're ready, and we are. So, let me get this mitt on right. Okay, this is our melted milk and potatoes and our butter. We're just going to pour it in, and we're going to start mashing, and then as we need it, we'll add more. You can probably hear that sound. Before you couldn't hear it because there was no liquid. They were kind of hard, but now they're all coming together. Add a little bit more liquid. I don't want watery mashed potatoes by any means, but I don't want them to be stiff and dry either. These look so creamy. I think we just about have the right consistency here. There you have it. Place them into a serving bowl, and they'll go right on your table. If you have a warming drawer, pop them into a warming drawer till the rest of your meal is complete. If you don't, just keep them covered in the same pan that they were mashed in, on the same burner you took them off with, and that'll keep it a little warm for you. And by the time your yam casserole and your pork is done, your potatoes are mashed. So let's go on to our next dish, coleslaw. I've never really cared for coleslaw because I don't like the mayonnaise and the feeling of the cabbage in my mouth once it's set in the mayonnaise for a while. It's just not tasty. So I love cabbage and I love carrots and all the other things that go into a coleslaw. So I thought, what if I change the dressing? So I've come up with a great garlic dressing for you today to go with the coleslaw that I think you're going to like even better, because the longer it sits in this dressing, the better the coleslaw is. So I've started off by grating some carrots, chopping some red bell pepper and some green onion, and putting it at the bottom of the bowl. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go right into making the dressing. If you have a processor, it's the perfect way to go. If you don't, then just do everything by hand. We're going to add equal parts of sugar and vinegar. I like to use red wine vinegar. And we're going to add some Dijon mustard. Sometimes I like to vary the mustard, use a little maybe champagne mustard or sweet and hot. It just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. A couple of toes of garlic and a little salt and a few turns of cracked pepper and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the olive oil in through the feed tube, and it'll drip into a steady stream. And the reason why I do that is because I want a thick dressing when the dressing is finished making. If I just added the whole thing, I'd get the same flavor, but it wouldn't be thick, and I want the dressing to be nice and thick. So here we go. When you add the olive oil like this and it comes out in a slow, steady stream, it's called emulsifying. So if you ever hear that term, you'll know exactly what that person's referring to. Now, it really is a good idea to have a processor, and you're going to see why. Because it's going to take cutting cabbage to a whole new level. It takes seconds to cut a cabbage using a processor as it does to having to do it all by hand. So I'm going to remove the lid of this, and I'm going to take out the steel blade, and I'm going to do the thin blade. Now, a processor normally comes with a grated blade, a thick, a medium, and a thin cut blade, and I'm using the thin cut blade. We're going to put it right in. Whoops, hold on. I got to pour this off. I'm going to pour this right into the bowl that I'm using to make my coleslaw in. And I'm going to put this back on. Now, some of you are saying, gosh, you didn't clean that bowl out. Well, I purposely didn't clean the bowl out because when the cabbage shreds, it's going to absorb the rest of that dressing. Little tricks like this can really make your meal up a notch. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to start with the red cabbage. We're going to place it in here like this. We're going to turn this on and watch how quick it takes. Boom. All the time you stand slicing it to make it thin, and this is just a little wrist action and it's done. We're going to move right over and put in some green cabbage next. God, I'd be lost without my processor. I've had this one for, oh my gosh, I bet 20 some years. So if you're going to invest in a processor, make sure it's a good one. And the last two wedges, that's all there is to it. Now we're going to remove this, take out the blade. Look at how beautiful, look at how fine. Isn't that beautiful? You know how long it would take you to cut cabbage this fine for a coleslaw? A long, long time, believe me, I've done it before. Anyway, we're just going to add this now to our bowl that has our carrots and our red bell pepper and our green onions in, and we're going to toss it. If you want to use your hands, you can, but I want to just use it like a shovel. Just lift and turn, lift and turn. Smells good too. And the longer this sits in the dressing, the better it becomes. And cabbage is perfect with pork. I don't know why, but for some reason when fall comes, I just love to cook a lot of pork in a lot of different ways. And I love to cook red cabbage, and I love to make slaws, and I like to experiment and try different vegetables in my slaws. And look at how colorful this looks. Is this not absolutely beautiful? Look at that. You can see some of the orange, the red, the purple, and the green. It's absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. And remember, your guests will eat with their eyes. So if you want them to try everything that you're preparing, then make sure by all means that you make it very colorful and very, very presentable. Okay, and then with that, I think it's tossed up enough. We're going to sprinkle on some caraway seed. Caraway and cabbage, the two C's, they always go together. So whether I'm cooking cabbage or making a slaw, I like to use caraway seed. And there we have it, an absolutely beautiful coleslaw that you'd be very proud to put on your guest table. Well, we're ready for our wonderful presentation. To my left are the mashed potatoes made with the red potatoes. And I put a few little decorations on top. The green really just brings out whatever you're serving. I mean, if we didn't have green, this would look very, very pale. I chose to use a little chive and a little parsley. Here we have our yam casserole with the topping and the chopped walnuts on top. And here's our beautiful, beautiful pork tenderloin. Can you see each piece has a piece of dried fruit in it? I mean, this is absolutely gorgeous. The cranberries stayed bright red. The apricots have that little orange color, and then of course the darkness of the prunes just made all these colors together just beautiful. And here we have our very colorful coleslaw made with our garlic vinaigrette. And no meal, in my estimation, is complete without some bread. I love bread. And I chose a pumpernickel rye bread I think would complement this meal very well. If you want to kick it up a notch, as Emerald would say, I say create your own essence. Place a cube of butter in a bowl and grate some orange zest on it, mix it up. That would go perfect with all the flavors of this meal and with the pumpernickel rye bread. So with that, I'm going to begin my evening of entertaining. And thank you all for watching Jenny's Kitchen, and see you on next show. Stuffed pork tenderloin. 1 tenderloin cut in half, handful of dried apricots, cranberries, and prunes. Cut a pocket in the meat halves. Stuff the pork with the dried fruit. 2 tablespoons Jenny's Kitchen pork rub, 4 tablespoons extra virgin olive oil. Mix rub and olive oil together. Smear all over the meat. Place in a preheated 375-degree oven on a rack in a shallow pan. Roast for 20 minutes. Cook to desired doneness. Yam casserole. 3 pounds yams peeled, cut into cubes and cooked. Salt and pepper to taste. 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon nutmeg, 3 tablespoons butter, 1/2 cup coconut milk, 1/4 cup brown sugar. Drain the yams. Season the yams with salt, pepper, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Add the butter and brown sugar and mash. Add the milk and combine. Place in a casserole. Sprinkle the topping over the yams. Topping: 1/2 cup flour, 1/4 cup butter, 2 tablespoons brown sugar. Mix until the topping resembles crumbs. Sprinkle over the casserole. Sprinkle with 1/3 cup chopped walnuts. Mashed potatoes. 2 pounds unpeeled red potatoes cut into chunks and cook. 3 tablespoons butter, 1/2 cup half and half. Salt and cracked pepper to taste. Drain the potatoes, set aside, covered in the pan. Season the potatoes with salt and pepper. Heat the butter and half until warm. Gradually add to the mashed potatoes, combining well. Add more half and half if the potatoes are dry. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons cut chives over the potatoes and mix well. Coleslaw with garlic vinaigrette. 1 grated carrot, 1/2 minced red bell pepper, 2 green onions sliced thin. Place the ingredients into a bowl. Set aside. 1/2 head each shredded green and purple cabbage. Combine cabbages with the other ingredients. Toss to combine. Add the dressing and toss again. Dressing: 1/4 cup red wine vinegar, 1/4 cup sugar, 1 tablespoon Dijon mustard, 2 toes garlic. Place the ingredients in a food processor. Process all ingredients. Add salt and pepper. Slowly add the olive oil through the feed tube, 1/2 cup at a time. Continue to process until the oil is combined into the other ingredients. Pour over the slaw. Sprinkle 1 tablespoon caraway seeds on top. For information, see Jenny's Rubs at Jenny's website, jennyskitchen.com.